Welcome back to more Thoughts and Ramblings. I do so enjoy the time that this shutdown has given me to roam the internet in search of support or opposition to my ideas and my questions. Listening to others, I've realized words that are seldom used in ordinary conversation were popping up and being used in unusual ways. Among them, betrayal, cowardice, and sacrifice. The context for betrayal was that we had played by the rules, and that was not enough. We were living a decent life, working, worshiping our God, caring for our family and for others. We were doing what was expected of us, and our expectation was that that should at least be rewarded by normality. What have we done to deserve Corona destroying our world? We didn't indulge in odd foods from the local swamp, or mix up weird viruses in laboratory test tubes. So why are we and so many others paying such an incredible price? We hate the name coward, particularly when it whispers at the back of our mind, when we examine our unwillingness to resume life or to let others in or to re-engage the school or work world. Doors are opening with the approval of those same health officials who closed them, but we're not rushing to go through them or to get on the subway or to return to work or dine at our favorite restaurant. And we are tired of being afraid. We've done nothing except sacrifice since March, voluntarily or not. When does the reward come? Working hard, even if it's working hard at keeping positive about being unable to work, and the threat of the unseen and being deprived of our everyday life are things we've faced day after day for months. Betrayal, cowardice, sacrifice, values that really distress us, names given to our fears. But the word I really like and haven't used for 40 years is overcome. Not how overcome people are by today's reality, but how people are overcoming everything that's been thrown at us. And overcoming really is what I see all around me. I hope I'm not the only one who remembers singing the great 1960s protest song of Pete Seeger and Joan Baez, which I recommend be revived and become the anthem for 2020. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, it is deep in my heart. I do believe that we shall overcome someday. See how nice I was to you? I did not sing it out loud. But how many know that it started out as a gospel song, I'll Overcome Someday, composed by a 19th century Methodist Episcopalian, the Reverend Charles Albert Tindley, who was inspired by Paul's letter to the Galatians. Ye shall overcome if ye faint not, and let us not be weary in doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. The first verse of Tindley's hymn begins, "The world is one great battlefield with forces all arrayed. If in my heart I do not yield, I'll overcome someday." Well, just as wars of the past filled church pews, this disaster has turned people to the internet to learn and read, to communicate and to listen, and to my great delight, to turn to YouTube on Sunday mornings to share thoughts with me. It is strangely wonderful how in times of such adversity people come together. If not in person, then embracing new technologies, uniting their voices and their energies. We may be hunkered down at home, but arms are being figuratively linked in commitment to making the world a better place as a result of our having gone through this together. And it seems to me that the faith of many is growing stronger than it was before our plague arrived. And who is the genius who dreamt up the idea of after-service coffee hours on Zoom? Raw to him. Just look around at the sharing and efforts of others. One of the bright spots in my life is when I see, and it's almost every day, that I've received a blast email from Ruth, knowing that it will be full of laugh-inducing humor, beauty, and useful information. Imagine how many hearts she lightens and days she brightens. And we finally have the time to read the newsletters from museums and clubs and family members that unite us in shared interests and feed our need to remain committed and interested. And the extra time has allowed us to research or read or engage in hobbies and projects and studies. Many will come out of this with a new skill or talent. But best of all, the time for self-examination has brought about real changes in goals and commitments and dreams are the first step toward realities. While some feel more vulnerable to the unknown that we cannot control, many are also feeling stronger in knowing that they are doing just that, coping with the unknown, even if it is tough to do so. Discovering backbone that one didn't know one possessed is very motivational, and it can lead to great things when you believe in yourself. That isn't to say that we are coming out of this unscathed. People are yearning for deeper connections, but don't necessarily know where to turn. We want deeper connections with those we love and didn't realize how important they were in our lives until we could no longer see them. Deeper connections with work colleagues with whom sharing ideas enhances the workday, and we never told them. Deeper connections with our God and our faith, but not just in returning to our church pew or trying a new worship set or joining the choir. I find myself more aware of the presence of the Spirit always with me and kicking me out of bed when I want to crawl under the sheet and pull the pillow over my head, reminding me that the crabgrass is out of control and that my thoughts need to be put to paper. We just need to admit that we're not invincible, and up turns the Spirit to fill in the tough parts or get out the prod. Mental health has been more impacted than our physical well-being by COVID. Relationships that were rocky or fragile before isolation have rarely benefited from it, and separations and divorces will be an outcome. But that isn't always a bad thing. And people have been reaching out for help from marriage counselors and ministers and social workers and lawyers. They just can't do it in person. But all that helps some people overcome. For some, with no place to go, staying at home meant greatly reduced expenditures. No expensive coffees, restaurant lunches, and wandering through the mall just in case something grabbed your eye. For others, the discovery of online shopping and reduced income has proved an incompatible combination that needs to be reined in. Students learning to be more independent and responsible for doing their own lessons and signing in and sending off projects will be so much better prepared for post-secondary colleges and universities. Parents discovering that not all teachers teach all subjects equally well has opened up the possibility of the very best teachers of each subject, exciting students with first-rate lectures through an online resource library for those who must stay at home or those who want to enrich in-class lessons. People have died, and some have had to come face to face with their own mortality. The resources normally available have not been there, and they have faced that reality, and in doing so, have found new ways to acknowledge the finality of the death of one they loved, and how to grieve together while apart, and in doing so, have discovered new strength within themselves and their faith, and that will enrich the rest of their lives. For many, separation from a senior member of their families has been heart-wrenching. For those living out their twilight years in the confines of elder residences has been compounded by an Occam's razor choice. Do we do everything to protect the residents from the deadly disease, or do we place a priority on providing the companionship of family and caregivers that makes the fading days valuable? For many families, they believe that losing the touch and the voices and the care that they provide is too great a deprivation for their loved ones in the closing days of this life. Others argue that each moment is the gift of God, and who would reject God's gift at life's end? There is no one right answer to this. But out of these tragedies and impossible choices have risen champions of the elderly, fighting to open doors to caregivers and family and to improve facilities and care, and who are now girding themselves for the battles that lie ahead to ensure that the future will be brighter for those no longer able to care for themselves. We do struggle with finding meaning in what has happened to our world, a horror that targets the oldest and the poorest and the most marginalized throughout the world. Countries that were just getting to their feet falling back, economies and companies and families bankrupted by a virus so tiny the eye cannot see, and protection and a vaccine seems so elusive. So I suggest we go back to that old gospel hymn of Reverend Tindley, where in his final verse he answers the question we all have, finding meaning in the midst of this. Though many a time no sign appear of answer when I pray, my Jesus says I need not fear, he'll make it plain someday. And that is the reality for all of us. So do not fear, we shall overcome, and someday all will be clear and division and sorrow will be no more. In the meantime, together we shall overcome, together we shall triumph, for together, working for good, we can overcome anything. So may it be. Amen. Don't forget, Sunday services online. Worship, pray, praise, and sing to the glory of God. And I'll see you next week.